Welcome back to Fast Market on the Schwab Network. Kevin Hinks and Kevin Green back for our cash tag segment. Now let's bring in the co-founder of Likefolio.com, Mr. Landon Swan, to the show. He's going to give us the Likefolio data on athleisure. Landon, a lot of choices, right? What I want to know is who's the biggest? I think we know that. But is anybody making headway, and who's having the better run? Who's having the worst run? I guess in short, give us the Likefolio data, Landon.
Sure. Well, of course, Nike's the biggest. I mean,
sure.
When you look at the mention mind share, which is, you rack them all together and see who's got the most mentions, Nike's about 85% of that pie. So they're the behemoth in the group. And when you're trying to decide who's doing better, I mean, today, on Cloud, obviously, if you look at the 4 stock charts of Nike, Under Armour, On Cloud, Lulu, On Cloud Holding is definitely the standout. I mean, theirs actually looks different before today's report, and then of course after it looks really good. So surging about, I think, 15% today on a really nice report. I mean, 36 cents revenue or earnings instead of 15 cents last year, expected at 12. So they did really well, really well. They've done a lot of cost cutting. Their direct to consumer has done well. They've got a leaner inventory. This is their, I think, 5th quarter of declining sales, but they're showing that management is able to handle that, reduce costs, get more lean, and increase those profits. So, obviously you want to see sales going up, but next best to that is income going up as expenses decrease as well. So one of the reasons I think they're doing so well is happiness. I mean, they've got what seems to be the best quality product out there, with happiness levels kind of off the charts. I mean, when you compare it to the rest of these others, On Cloud really sets themselves apart, and you can see it when you get into actually read these mentions, people talking. Lulu was always the leader in happiness, highest quality. But surprise there is Under Armour kind of hanging with Lulu. Didn't see that coming, but it's there in the data. But On Cloud's always done really well, and they're kind of the new leader when it comes to super high quality. When it comes to, Lulu, we're cautiously bullish, similar to Nike, cautiously bullish. Both of those report in June. We've got, Lulu's doing well on the web visits, the increase in web visits there, and as you can see, very high customer happiness. Nike is, the clear leader among the group, and we're seeing a little bit of a trade down when it comes to, people going to Nike who maybe they're a little bit more strapped, trying to find some money to spend, and instead of spending it on the more expensive Lulu or even On Cloud, they're going down to Nike, and so Nike's kind of pulling it from all directions here. So they're doing well. We are seeing a little bit of a decline in both web data and mention volume for Nike, so a little concerning there, but not terrible, especially when you look at what their stock's done. I mean, all of these companies' stocks they're very similar charts. They're off from highs. They're pretty low right now, except for On Cloud, who was a little bit high going into this report and is now even higher. The one that's reporting this week, Under Armour, is really interesting because you can see here they're positive with Lulu on web mentions. Their stock is about 10% off of 52-week lows. They've got an increase in mentions, an increase in very high happiness levels, which we didn't really see coming, as I talked about earlier. So they're kind of the one that we've got our eye on this week. We're worried a little bit that the report from On Cloud could bias people to the upside, raise those expectations, and make it harder to beat. But it looks like the data is pretty good going into their report. We're going to have to wait till June for Nike and Lulu, but Under Armour this week is looking pretty bullish.
So Landon, when you're kind of looking at the data here, it does appear like there's a little bit of a divergence, especially when you're looking at the year-over-year change mentions for Under Armour and even On Holding. And so On Holding has done a really good job with direct to consumer, but it seems like they're kind of falling to the wayside when it comes to mentions. Do you think that that's a little bit of a risk when it comes to like a name like Nike or a Lulu, where we might be just seeing a drop off across the board when it comes to the consumer and searching for these products as a whole?
It's possible. So one of the things, when it comes to On Cloud, our data was somewhat bearish on Cloud going into this report, and we got it right on the revenue side. But, one of the weaknesses of Likefolio data is we don't know the expense side. And so they've done a really good job of leaning up and increasing their total income just based on cutting those expenses. So, they have had that 5th quarter of declining sales. I think that It's going to be somewhat of a bellwether for Nike, but you're talking about a very, very small company compared to Nike. They, pretty much they all are. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I think that Under Armour will give a little bit more insight into how Nike and Lulu are going to report next month. But right now, a lot of this has to do with how is management able to handle the tightening of the consumer, because you can see it in OnCloud. They're up 15% today with declining sales but increasing income. So that management, I think, and getting that lean inventory going straight to consumer, direct to consumer, all of those things, cost cutting, all of that is obviously what you want to see as an investor. And now it's just a question of who else is doing it, because there is a chance that everyone's getting affected by that tightening consumer somewhat. But if they're able to handle it like they did, like OnCloud did, then yeah, this is going to be a good reporting season. Now, if it's the other way and the consumer's strong, if Nike comes out with good results, that's going to be interesting to see how it affects OnCloud and Under Armour after the fact, saying, hey, we're doing well. Why didn't you guys do well on sales? So we'll see. But going into Under Armour's, I say this week we're leaning a little bit bullish, and then long-term bullish on Nike and Lulu, but we got to wait a little bit for those reports.
Yeah, Landon, the two things that jumped out at me from your data was that Lululemon was strong on every page of your data, and the other one was happiness. Under Armour, the same happiness as Lululemon. That was a little bit of a shocker. That makes, like you said, their earnings report coming out later in the week kind of interesting, Landon. They're trying to get a heartbeat. They're trying to stay relevant.
They are, exactly. And it's not something that, before we pulled this data, I would have lost this bet.
Yes.
Frankly. It's always Lulu and OnCloud. We know those two are always going to be battling for the top spot. This could be, maybe there's just a little bit of a fluke in the data. I don't know, but 90 days worth of data is quite a bit. So I wouldn't say that's the case, but it is unusual to see them up at 73%. So people are happy with the product right now. That is going to turn into, cash register dings. So that's one of the reasons that we're leaning bullish. Not to mention the fact, look at the stock chart. It's just been getting killed. It's at the bottoms here. If you want to be a technical analyst, you can say it's very, very close to support at this $6 level. I think it's bumping up a little bit today on OnCloud's news, but not much, or maybe it's just moving with the market. But yeah, the happiness level was surprising. Just in that one name, the rest of them lined up at kind of where I thought they'd be. But yeah, Under Armour, I think that that's going to be a bullish sign for their revenue. And if they can come out with anything like OnCloud when it comes to cutting expenses and handling, direct to consumer things like that, and get a little bit of boost from this mention happiness on the revenue side, then yeah, it could be a really nice report for them.
Yeah, really interesting. Thank you so much for bringing this kind of data. And we always get something new. When we pay attention to Likefolio's data, there's always something new. This time, of all things, Under Armour. Landon, thanks for coming on as always. Have a great day.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, Kev. For this